I used to live out in the country when I was a kid, and I loved every second of it. Me and my brother would spend hours out in the woods just doing whatever. However, this day I will always remember and is probably the scariest experience of my life. My brother had come down with the flu, so he wasn't able to come outside and play. I just went out into the woods by myself. I've done this numerous times and have never felt scared or had any bad experiences. Our neighbors were so far away that we didn't even consider them neighbors. We've lived in the house since I was born, and I was 8 at the time, and throughout those years I've never seen another soul out in those woods. I started walking into the woods when about a quarter mile out, I see our collection of sticks, or fort equipment as we called it. I felt bad that my brother couldn't come out to play, so I decided to build us a fort and surprise him with it when he got better. I'm in the middle of building, and I hear a man's voice a few yards behind me. He asked me what I was doing and who I was, and he said it in the typical way an adult would talk to a child. Keep in mind, I was 8, and I've lived in this town with a population of 350, but I told him my real name and exactly what I was doing. He told me how he used to build forts in the army, and he would help me make the best fort ever. Only issue is that he didn't have his supplies on him, and he needed to go back to his truck to get them. He said he would need my help carrying the supplies, and that his truck is only a mile away, and he asked me to come with him and help. 8-year-old me couldn't believe my luck. I was trying to build an awesome fort for my brother, and now I'll get professional tools and supplies. Score! We started walking towards his truck, but things started to get weird. When we had to climb over a log or step down a small hill, he would grab my waist to help me out. At first, my sketchy meter was beginning to rise, but my will to make my brother happy outweighed the sketchy feelings I'd get. But when his hands moved, lower than my waist to help me, I politely asked him to stop, but he didn't. He kept helping me in uncomfortable places, and I don't know what came over me, but I asked him to stop firmly or else I would tell my dad. That's when his friendly stranger turned into a monster. His smile and chipper attitude changed into a silent predator and grabbed my wrist so tight that I thought he was gonna break it. I started screaming, kicking, anything, but we were in the middle of nowhere. I did the only thing that I could think of and kicked him in his groin. He let go just enough for me to slip away, and I started running in the opposite direction as fast as I ever have. I was running so fast that all those small hills and logs I mentioned, I was basically flying over them. Even with that speed, I could still hear him behind me. He kept yelling that he was sorry and he was just playing, but my sketch meter was already through the roof. My legs, lungs, and sides started to burn, and I felt like I was just about to stop from exhaustion. I started to see my house, and I guess he saw it too, because I didn't hear him behind me anymore. When I got back to my house, my dad was outside mowing the lawn. It took a while for me to catch my breath and stop crying enough to explain what happened. My dad got in his car with his gun and took off down the road, while my mom stayed back with me and called the police. They said they'd look into it, but nothing came out of it. It took years before my parents allowed me and my brother back out there by ourselves. I never saw that man again, which really makes me wonder, how did he know I was out there? Did he just go for a walk in the woods and stumble on me? I don't have an answer, but creepy psycho, let's not meet again. I think I was 5 years old at the time, and I can only remember small details, but my mother told me the whole story when I was older, and I asked her about it. Back then, my father often worked the night shift and was therefore not home at night. My mother was alone at home with me and my sister in a quiet settlement where nobody noticed anything at night. At the time, my uncle lived with my grandparents in an apartment next to us. He often frightened my mother by knocking on the door. My mother would always call, "Who is it?" but there was no answer until she opened the door a little bit and he could startle her. One day the same thing happened. There was a knock on the door, but the lights were out, and my mom asked again, "Who was there?" and again there was no answer. She opened the door a little bit, and someone immediately pushed against it and wanted to enter the apartment. But my mother had left the padlock on the door, so she managed to close the door and called the police. She told my father the whole thing, and then he bought a gas pistol. These are legal to buy in Germany. A few months later, this terrible event happened that haunted and traumatized me for a very long time. I was woken up by noises at night and looked to my right to the window in my room. We lived on the ground floor. A figure hanging on the window could be seen, or rather the outlines. He had a knife in his hand and was trying to crack open the window. I immediately ran to my mother and woke her up and told her. She got up immediately and took my younger sister and me into the living room and took the gas pistol out of the closet and started shooting at the man. She saw there were at least 3 men outside. I can remember exactly how my face was on fire from the gas. After about 10 minutes and a few shots from my mother, the 3 men fled because they only had knives as weapons with them, and they were afraid that they had been discovered by my mother and she had called the police. I grew up in a very small town in Montana, and during the summer, my brother and I would sometimes sell lemonade by the side of the road. We didn't make a lot of money, but we did have fun selling the lemonade to people who were passing by. One hot afternoon, my brother and I were standing at our lemonade stand when we noticed an old rusty car pass by us 2 or 3 times. At the time, it struck me as a little creepy. Eventually, the car slowed down and stopped right in front of the stand. There was a woman in the passenger seat, and she rolled her window down. I saw she was really skinny with gray hair that was stained a sickly yellow hue from too much smoking. I couldn't see the man who was driving very well because he never looked at me and just stared straight ahead. Both of them seemed very odd, and their clothes were old and dirty. "You boys out here selling lemonade all by yourselves?" croaked the woman. "Yeah, my mom lets us," I replied. "Is your mom home?" she asked. "Yeah, she's in the house," I said. The woman turned and looked at the man who was driving. He nodded, still staring straight ahead. The woman turned back to me and said, "Okay, I'll have a lemonade." "That'll be 25 cents, I said as I poured her a glass. She rummaged around her purse and I could hear coins clinking. Then she pulled out a $5 bill and held it out to me. A chill went down my spine. Why was she handing me a $5 bill if she had coins in her purse? Something just didn't feel right. "I don't have any change," I lied. "You can keep the change," she croaked. "Just come and take it." Something felt very wrong, but $5 is a lot of money to a kid. I walked up to the car and reached out to take the $5 from her hand. As soon as my fingers touched it, the woman suddenly grabbed me by the wrist and began pulling me into the car. I screamed my lungs out, and my brother ran to the house, yelling for help. The man floored the accelerator and the car lurched forward. I fought with all my might and managed to wrench myself free from her grasp. The car stopped and the man got out, but I was already running for my life. My brother was pounding on the door and screaming. My mother rushed out, and I turned just in time to see the rusty old car speeding away. We told my mom what had happened, and she called the police. When my brother and I calmed down and went back to the lemonade stand, there was a $5 bill lying on the ground. We packed up the lemonade stand and put it away for good.